I have a confession.
Oh my God, tell me everything.
Okay, so I just got back from a trip to Wisconsin. I drove and I could not find, I just recently moved, I couldn't find my toiletries that I travel with. So I just made the decision to, use the toiletries as I traveled across the country, in the hotels, and my mom's house.
Oh no.
And it was bad. I now have acne down my neck and my scalp is full of scabs and my hair was like all crazy. So esthetician Cybil should know better, but she was like, it's going to be 4 days. It'll be fine. Listen,
no.
It was not fine.
No, it makes me feel so much better about myself when I make poor choices. I do have to say.
I made bad choices and I felt really stupid on day one. On day one, as I was standing in the shower, looking at the ingredient list on the back of the shampoo, being like, sulfate.
You're like, ooh, this is not going to end well.
I thought about just using my facial cleanser for my shampoo. I literally did. It was a bad choice. Because I did bring my facial stuff, but I couldn't find my shampoo.
You just wear a hat.
God, it was terrible. Okay, guys, lesson learned. Do not use the store-bought crap. Don't do it. It was bad. Oh my God. All right. So never do that again. No. Says the Solon. All right. All right. Let's get to it, guys. Hi, I'm Cybil Solon. I'm an esthetician who knows better and a spa owner.
And hi, I'm Alex Ellis. I'm a body nerd and wellness expert, and we are business besties.
And bosses, running your business, well, it's hard.
Super hard, but we're terrible employees. So we're figuring it out.
I've already figured it out, but we promise to share everything we know about what it takes to make six-figure incomes.
And be brutally honest about what works and what totally sucks.
I'll be honest, a bunch of it sucks because 2020 is a cunt. So let's get started.
We're earning that explicit badge up at the top. Welcome back to Skinfessional. On today's show, we are talking about no pressure sales conversations, why you should not be invested in whether they're going to buy or not.
And how to recognize if that person is ready to buy now or later.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the art and science of... No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to be talking about
No, we're not like that. That's not us.
As lies, that is all silly lies. But this sort of came up. I mean, we hopped on the call and I was like, I got to tell you my stats. Last week, I think I talked about that I was in a launch. So I just want to kind of fill you guys in because we started this show. It has been almost a year when we first started recording episodes, right?
Yeah, totally.
So crazy. So when we started the show a year ago, started recording, I had my lowest month of life and made $140. I mean, literally that barely covers gas for my car for the month, but like, that's cool. So finished this last launch, my conversion rate, right? The percentage of people that are buying based on how many people came in, was up to 17%. So online business industry standard is anywhere from like 3 to 5%. And my last launch was at like 11. So 17, I'm like, fuck yeah, super stoked on that. And the other thing is that I grossed over $6,000 of income.
Woo! Yeah, we're giving cheering sounds. Yeah,
which is like crazy, so cool. So these no pressure sales conversations and talking about sales and really reformulating like how your brain thinks about sales so that you can be more comfortable with sales. Truly, truly, truly over the last year, that's a lot of what I've done, and taking these little steps to continue to grow, continue to iterate, to continue to evolve is what's built my confidence to be able to do what I just did. And I say this too, coming from someone, it's laughable. I tried to sell $25,000 packages to people who had no interest, like just not the right package. So we're going to talk about packaging. We're going to talk about not so much pricing, but really like, how do you show up and have a conversation with someone when you have a solution and they want the solution? How do you pitch it and
right. And we do have a whole nother episode where we talked about pricing. So
Yeah.
I'll make sure I put that in the, hey, boop,
In the
left there somewhere.
description, wherever, I guess.
If you watch the YouTube, boop, it'll be up there somewhere. So I actually am really excited about this as well, because I know, as I always say, I know everything. But
it's really frustrating. Trust me.
but I will say that when Alex and I were discussing this, I was like, hey, I actually don't really talk to any of my clients about, as you said, like kind of like future questioning.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody kind of talks to me about hesitation on a sale, I do a little tiny bit of investigating, but as soon as they give me a lot of pushback, I'm like, you know what? They're just not ready for this. And I just let them go. Mm-hmm. I always look at selling very much like a trading room floor. Like I'm like a Wolf of Wall Street. I'm like, sell. Oh, you don't want it? Buy. Sell, buy. I don't want to see you. Buy. But you're very much kind of, you like suss them out a little bit. And then you're like, well, pin in that. All right. And for me, I'll just be like, well, that person is either ready or they're not ready. And if they're not ready, they'll come back to me when they are, because clearly they want this product or they don't.
Yeah.
And it is a matter of timing. It is really a matter of timing.
Yeah.
Right. I know that I used to listen to a really good sales coach who once said, people, when they're ready to buy, they're ready to buy. And either they're going to buy from you or they're going to buy from somebody else. And so it's very much like, if you're ready to buy a car, guys, you're ready to buy a car. You've done the research. You're like, I'm ready to buy a car. Where you're ready to buy it from me, or you're ready to buy the person down the street. That's a whole nother option.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you're not ready to buy, then you're not ready to buy.
No.
And it doesn't matter what you say. Nobody's going to talk you into suddenly being like, yeah, I wanted that Mustang. I wanted that Corolla.
Well, actually, it is possible to talk people into buying things and they're not really ready to buy. And it's super manipulative and super abusive. And like, don't ever do that, because that's so fucked up. And if it's ever happened to you and you've ended up buying something that you had no business in buying, it's a really shitty experience. So,
well, yes,
that does exist.
But that is probably not what we all excel at. Therefore that's not what we're doing. So when people are talking about the fact that they're like, ooh, I don't want to sell to people, I feel skeezy. That's what we're talking about.
Well, and I think too, especially in the online business space, like a lot of the mainstream people talking about selling are teaching those tactics of confronting people when they say no and trying to like coach them out of their no. And like, I mean, honestly, think about it. What other time in your life when you say no, do you want someone to try to talk you out of your no?
Oh my God.
We're trying to get away from that. So I think that, and that's also why people say, oh, I don't like sales, is because we are coming up against this school of thought of this manipulation of sales, and we don't like that. We don't want to be a part of that. That doesn't mean you don't like sales. It just means you don't like manipulating people. And sales doesn't have to be that. And that's what we wanted to share with you guys today.
That is such a good point. I actually wrote that down, guys. Coaching them out of their no. What the hell is that phrase even about? Okay, because I wrote that down.
I tried to do that $25,000 sale too. Oh yeah,
there you go. Yeah, I worked in telemarketing for years, and like we actually probably were designed to teach them to coach them out of their sales, and it was skeezy, and I hated it. It made me want to die. And I love selling. I love selling to people, because you're selling them something that they want. But if they don't want it and you don't believe in it, it's not happening.
It's not going to be there. I want to say too, a different thing, and also like our different approaches to selling, is because you and those of you who are in the spot, in the salon, are getting to talk to your client one-to-one, face-to-face. For me, as I'm doing an offer to scale, so I'm talking to like 20, 30 people at the same time. So the types of questions I ask is like, I need to guide them to that place on their own without us actually talking about things. So there's things to be gained, but you're probably not going to be asking your client, so like, where do you want to be like 10 years from now? That's probably not going to happen while you're trying to sell.
I mean, you never know if you're pivoting, we've talked about pivoting a lot. You might be thinking about these things. Yeah. Also, if you have an online store, these are the questions to think about when you're writing your copy. Right?
100%.
Right? These are all important things to think about when writing your copy. All right. So let's talk about the first thing you want to, with no pressure sales. The first thing we kind of are thinking about are kind of like selling from, like I always call selling from like small to big. All right. Like, and so it's like, how much are you essentially selling to a person? Like, how do you get them to make that first purchase with you? And Alex had brought up this book called Tiny Habits. Yeah. That kind of like sparked this idea. Talk about that for a second.
Actually, and that also gave me like so many other ideas as well of what you're just talking about. But I think, when we are learning new things and just like growing and changing whatever, it's really hard to go from like 0 to a million, right?
Right.
Or A to Z. It's a lot easier to go from A to B and then B to C and, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
And even like when it comes to sales, because especially online, your person, like I said, they're not standing there in front of you. So I need to create an environment where they feel like they know me and they like me and they can trust me. And I need to make it feel super easy to give me money in exchange. And once you have that first sale, and you guys all know this too, once you have somebody in the salon, it's a lot easier to sell them a product, right? Because technically it's an upsell than it is to like pick somebody off the street and try to sell them like moisturizer. Like it's not going to happen, So small for me is, can I convince them, or not even convince, can I offer them a product that's like $27, right? Which is like more than your Starbucks, but it's not like, if $27 goes south, I'm like, meh, it was $27, like whatever. And that, just having them comfortable giving me money, even if it's just virtually or whatever, there's a different type of relationship that happens. So when I then say, cool, do you want this next offer? It's $67. It's a lot easier. Right? Your best customer is a repeat customer. And I have alienated so many people. You guys, remember this $25,000 offer? I did like 50 sales calls, 50. And actually, one of those people, maybe two of those people, are now clients at the $67 level. And it took me like 2 years to
realize like where they need to
be. Yeah.
Right.
Come around.
So essentially, if you're in like you're sitting in your salon or your spa or whatever, and you're like, okay, I want to sell them something. So what I would say is you want to start with, and Alex says this too, you start with, whether you know or not, you start with a hero product, right? And instead of call it a hero product, it's that thing that you love the most, or that thing that you start somebody with, because it is the thing that you know that they're going to want, right? It's the thing that you believe in. It's a starter thing that it's easy to use. It doesn't ever get returns, right? It's something that people go, this was simple and I liked it and it made changes.
Yeah.
Fast. Right. I could see them. I felt them. I noticed them, and I could tell my friends. Right. That is a hero product.
Can I just point out one super important thing that you just said is that your customer wants.
Your customer wants. That is correct. So often it is not the product that you want them to have. Okay. Right. Also, if you're in the spa, it smells good. Right. And I know that many times I also sell product all the time where I'm like, this product does not smell good. Now with acne people, there's a whole nother realm because you're something very different. But even the acne people, if you can get something that smells not like ass, that's always nice.
They do. Okay. They all smell like sulfur and stuff.
They just, acne products are not always the best smelling product. But if you can make a change that feels good, they can trust you. Okay. You're trying to gain trust.
Yeah.
Right? People, and it has to work faster. It can't be forever. So it's not a purging product, right? It's not something that you're like, you're going to feel worse before you feel better. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that, right? Alex, so what is like a hero thing for you? What do you use for like a hero product?
I'd say like my toolkit, which is something like the thing that what they want most of all is like, well, just tell me what to do. So I'm like, cool, here's a product that literally tells you what to do for the next month. All you have to do is do the thing.
That's correct. That's correct.
$27, figure it out.
Right. Also, it has a price point that they feel somewhat comfortable with. Now, you have to decide with your clientele what their price point is. I do not sell often based on price point. That is not what my clientele cares about as much. If my clientele cares about price point, they're probably not my client.
Right.
But you're going to decide for you what your price point is. So I still have a couple products that are hero products that are falling like the $54 range, because sometimes that's what you need. So for you, hopefully you have products that are fallen ranges.
I do have to say too, though, as the consumer, $54 is a great place to be, because that's more expensive than drugstore stuff. And so as a customer, you're like, okay, that's a little bit more, but I'm going to get results. And I trust that it's worth it, but it's not too much. It's not too much of a reach.
Right.
But if you had started me and you pulled this shit on me too, like a $120 product, I'd been like, no, I can't. Like that number would have been a stopping point for me right away.
Right. So Alex is a perfect example of a person that I started on a $54 product. And then at some point I was like, yeah, I'm not going to have that for you anymore. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch you out to a different product because you're not getting the results that you're actually seeking. I'm going to give you this product that's $150.
No, but you didn't tell me that.
Right. But I'm going to give her that. I'm going to give her this product that's essentially $150. And when she's like, this product is amazing, it's changing my life. I'm like, yeah, so that product's $150. And she's like, oh, bananas, what? And I'm like, but is it doing all the job? Is it doing everything you want?
And then I'm already sold.
Right. And so that's actually, and we're not going to talk about that deeply in this class, in this particular class.
Yes, manipulation, you guys.
in this particular episode, but that's actually how you actually use sampling. So people are like, here's a bunch of samples. I'm like, no. Mm-hmm. That's actually how you use samples, is you sample somebody when they're already invested in a product.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly it. I think we get so tied into what we want, like we want to do, and like the type of, business owner we want to be and what that looks like. And then we sort of forget about this person who's like, hey, I have money and I want to give it to you, but like, I'm not sure what you offer. I'm not sure what's in it for me. So this really is like, stop thinking about yourself for a minute. And we've talked about this before, and just find out, or maybe it's even a conversation with them. Like, what do they actually want that I can give to them right now, knowing that that's not where they're going to end up. The people who buy this toolkit and get this calendar, that's not the solution. The solution is for them to learn how to do it for themselves. And that's what I offer in my membership. But I got to get them started somewhere, right? You got to get them that first win, to feel what it feels like, to see what it's like, to have oh my God, my skin. I was like, whose face is this? Right. And then they're bought in and sold to the idea. And I mean, truly, you could come to me with some like alligator tear snail snot thing. And I'd be like, take all my money, take it all.
And that's the point. And there are so many different ways to sell from big to small. We can have a whole episode, an entire class on different ways to sell big to small, but that is the idea. So think about in your own kind of practice, how you could in your own way sell kind of from big to small. Start them from smaller, amplify up, go smaller to bigger, right? In your selling technique, right? And I know that many times you've been told, because I've been told too, you kind of like push everything out on the counter. That is too scary for people. They're overwhelmed. Overwhelm is a thing, right? Too many choices.
I think too is like packaging is super important. There's a copywriter. I was just looking at their website and wanting to see, how can I work with you, right? Think of like, that's literally how people are, how can I, like, what's in it for me? And the packages were like, not really clear. They were just like, 5 sessions. I'm like, okay, but like, what am I going to get in those 5 sessions? Like, what does that include? So anything you can do to be more clear about what the client is going to get, like, y'all, we don't have a business without them. So like, let's stop pretending that it's about us and make it all about them, because that's what it's about.
Totally. And when it comes to kind of what packaging, I always talk about when you're selling people, figure out what their kind of like package point is. So like for me, I'm always like, are they a person who there are clients who come in and they're like, I want everything now. I want it all now. So for you to say, well, I'm just going to start you with this one thing. They're like, who the fuck is this person? They're telling me I'm only to do one thing. They don't know me. Right. So there may be the person that you start with, like a smaller, like smaller ones, like you have like the minis, or you start them with, hey, I'm going to start you with this. And then I'm going to ask how you're doing. And you come back in next week. I'm going to start you with this, just because, and you give them the reasons, right? The reasoning. If you give them reasons, they understand what you're doing. Right. And then you have the other people who are like, I'm afraid of life. I have super sensitive everything. I don't know. And then I don't know. Right? The scared people. And then those are the people you're like, hey, here's one thing. It's super simple. Don't worry about it. They're like, I don't even use everything. Everything's on my shelf and I use nothing. Like, cool. I got something for you too. Right. So you have to find out who the person is. You have to get into their minds and figure out what they're going to do. So Alex actually asked me the other day, she was like, I can't use my masks. She's like, I can't do it. I don't know how. And I'm like, you should be using every time I talk to her, I'm like, are you using your masks?
Nope.
I'm like, you're all congested. Are you using your mask? And she's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, you just have to pick a day and just do it. Right.
Yeah. Well, and we started talking about it. And then again, I'm reading this Tiny Habits book that honestly, you guys, because we work in an industry where like we need people to be compliant, like totally read this book because you will have to teach your people how to do habits and frame them so that they can win and be successful. Yeah, because in my head, I was like, well, I want to do it every other day, but then I can't remember what every other day is. And then I also like feel like I don't have time because I'm waiting to get ready for bed so super late. And then I just want to go to sleep. And so I just said Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's it. Just do your math Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It gets me ready for bed sooner. So I'm getting more sleep, which also thank you. And then all of that like gross congestion I had from the toxic air we were breathing here in LA with the fire.
Go away.
It did. I'm purging a little bit over here, but
amazing.
Mondays is for mud masks and Wednesdays and Fridays are for the enzyme. And it's like, it's so simple. Stay tuned. I'll probably sabotage it in some way because I don't like it when things work, but we'll go with it.
Let's see how it goes. But so, and so what have we learned from something like that, right? Is that, so remember when Alex first started, she was like, people want to be just told what to do. They have a calendar. They just tell them what to do. So, hey, maybe if I just give it her calendar, it's like, hey, here's a calendar that says Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which by the way, I do have one that says here's how to do all your things and what days to do it on. I give it to her. She'd be like, oh, thanks. So I totally know when to do my crap now. Mm-hmm. Right. So things, package your stuff and know who you're talking to for what things.
I think too, I've resisted making calendars and stuff for so long. And I made some calendars for this launch and people are loving it so much. Right?
People love calendars.
They love it. So I was like, I guess I'll be making one for each month.
For everything.
And that's okay. And I think also, so back to this idea of small to big, this is small to big for you also as business owners. If when I started, even my membership, a year and a half ago, and I had said, I'm going to do all of these things and it's going to have all of this stuff and I'm going to have to do all of this, it would have been so overwhelming. And so for you as well, even if you have like a big thing of an idea of what it's going to look like and where you want to go, just put a pin in some stuff. I'm going to get to this when I can get to it and trust and know that it will be the right time when you get there.
Right. And go back and rethink some of the things if you've got some time. I mean, we're sitting around, some of us doing nothing. So see how it goes. Okay. When you are selling people, all right, to make it no pain and to make it, a conversation instead of like a salesy talk, right? Find their pain point, right? So we've talked about this a number of times.
Yeah.
Right. Find their pain point. You're not selling to a person as in like, hey, I'm just selling you this crappy thing that you don't want. They want this thing, but you have to talk in the language that they are speaking in. So you're not going to be like, oh, hey, I'm selling you this awesome cream that does all this stuff because I want to sell it to you. You're like, hey, did you say you have brown spots? This cream gets rid of brown spots. And they're like, oh my God, that's what I want. Right. You're like, it gets rid of lines and wrinkles. They're like, I don't care. You're like, it gets rid of brown spots. Also, it gets rid of lines and wrinkles, but brown spots.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I was going to ask you, I was like, but what about being too negative? Because that's what I like to do.
Right. Yeah. No. Do try to speak in positives. It is something I work on with Alex all the time. It is hard to do. Is to work on not saying any negatives. It's really hard.
Don't say you don't.
Yeah. No no's, don'ts, nots. Work on it. It's really hard. Don't write with them. Don't say them.
Oh, okay. Got a story for this. I told you I was going to tell you about my webinar. So one of the things that I do in my launch is I offer, it's sort of like the Vitamix person at Costco. Like that's me on the internet. And so I taught 2 classes. And then the third class was more of like the strategy and the how in your traditional webinar or workshop. And one of the first things right out of the gate in this presentation is to let people know that you're in the right spot and then go through some of these points. And I've always done the negative. Because that's just like, I don't know. It's so easy to go there. So easy. But I didn't this time. And so instead of saying like, you're frustrated with being in pain, I said, you're in the right place if you love planners and getting organized and knowing what to do so you don't overthink it. Instead of saying like, nothing is working, I said, oh, you're in the right place if like movement is in your DNA and being active is like who you are. So it was still describing the same same person.
I'm going to stop for a second. I want everyone to think right now how they feel different about just the two different ways you listened and experienced that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I want you to listen to the difference of how you experience. As soon as she said no's and don'ts, people were like, I bet you were like, oh, but as soon as she said, and you're like, I am that person. And you leaned forward and you were like, I am that person.
Yes. Instead
because
of
that is how
them.
positivity makes you think in sales.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is exactly what happened. Not only was my energy more excited because it was like our manifesto, our rally cry of like, this is who we are. People in the chat were like, yeah. The chat was so super engaged because of exactly what you're saying. I think a lot of these negative points of leaning into that picks at the shame of like, it's your fault that you're here.
Right.
When it's not, it truly isn't. And Tiny Habits talks about willpower and all of that, like it's bullshit. And so to be able to like have that positive statement, to say that positive statement, and even when at the end I did talk a little bit to more of the like literal pain points, but I'm not selling them on the shame right at the get-go. Yeah. And it makes such a big difference energetically for how you show up, how excited you are. That comes across to the person, how you're communicating. And on that webinar, like 4 people bought, which like never happens. Like it was huge. People were excited, like, oh, I can't wait to get started. I was like, me too. Right. Me too. So words have so much power. And so really think, yes, I want to help this person. And yes, I need to be aware of like what they're like worried about, but also like, what are they like super stoked and excited about and would be willing to like step in front of a room and be like, that's me. They're not going to step in front of the room and be like, I'm frustrated with being in pain, but they're going to be like, hey, like being active is who I am. And I'm so stoked to be here.
Right. And you can also, so let's say you're talking to somebody who has acne, right? And you're like, I want to talk about that. You can even say, are you somebody who worries about the fact that you can't go outside? Okay. You could say that, but you could also say, do you want to have a future where you walk outside during the day without makeup?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That is a different, you are looking towards their positive future. Mm-hmm. That is what you're seeking for them, right? Mm-hmm. So you're talking about their positive future, and that's what we want. So I want you to think about it in your terms as well. So it is so easy to be more positive if you start thinking about the positive side. So when you catch yourself doing the don'ts and the no's, I do the same with customer care emails. So I write the email and then I'm like, no, don't say the don't. Don't say that don't. And I know it's hard sometimes, guys, but you just have to say positives. It's all positives, no negatives.
Mm-hmm. And if you're already thinking of like, well, how can I start using this? The stuff we're talking about is not just for a sales conversation with somebody standing in front of you or on the internet, but like social media content. Like just start to scroll. I had an entire email sequence from somebody who I know personally, and it was all like, your eye doctor won't tell you this. And I'm just like, yo, this is like really turning me off because you're being such
the things your eye doctor should be saying.
Right. It's like, no.
It's so easy. And I do it for people all the time where I'm like, why are there so many negatives in this?
Yeah.
And I want to be honest with you. I learned this technique probably 15 years ago, and it is really hard, guys. So if you're like, I'm struggling, it's okay. It's okay. If you've ever hung out with me, you know I use the word zero. I'll be like, 0 stress. Right? I don't say don't stress. I was like, 0 stress is the only word that you can use that is not a negative. You can say 0. So 0 stress, 0 worries.
Yeah.
0 worries.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. 0 worries, 0 stress, 0 stress express.
0 stress express. I love it. But no, I think that's a really huge thing. And I see this on social media. I hear people talking about it. Like, be aware of their pain points because you're positioning products and stuff to serve that pain point. But there is enough shame in the world that we don't also need to be shaming people for not buying something or being the way they are.
And you might not have thought about it like that, but that is often how it comes across. So kind of like take that in and just like feel it. Yeah. Right. And have 0 fears if this is something that you've been doing.
Totally. You guys, $25,000 product and trying to sell it to 50 people. And I felt like shit every time I got off the phone. So it's like, nobody's perfect. We all have to figure this out. And I think honestly, you figure it out by failing a bunch of times and finding what works, which also goes back to me and my masks. How long have I known you, Cybil? Like
So long.
so long. And how long have I not been doing masks? That entire time, you
How
guys.
many masks do you have? That I keep being like, do
So
your masks.
many. I only do them. Wow, so many parallels. I only do them when I get like a rash or this. I'm like, oh, I should do my mud mask. This is truly the first time in
She's
my
like,
life.
"Well, I'm gonna take a bunch of supplements instead of just doing a mask." I'm like, okay, but I mean, there's nothing
Supplements
wrong
are
with supplements,
working.
so I'm not gonna say anything. But a mask,
I'm gonna
would
do
just
an omega
kill
too.
the problem. Beautiful.
But all of that is to say, you're going to try, you're going to fail, you're going to try again. And you just have to keep trying and not thinking of these things as, oh, shoot, I failed. But cool, I learned a lesson about what I want to do differently next time.
Absolutely. And things that I want to talk about doing differently. Let's talk about not hiding sales costs.
No.
All right.
I did that too. Oh.
I know. So this is something that came up when we were talking about. So people know they're being sold to. Okay. Have you ever been being sold to and you're just like, oh my God, I did not realize that I was about to buy this or I was being sold to? It probably has not happened. You're probably scrolling on a page and being like, I'm being sold to salesy talk, right? Or somebody's pitching to you, they're giving you a sales pitch and you like, can you just get to the freaking point?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, scroll forward in real life, please. Right. Yeah. So people know they're being sold to. They don't care. They just want the bottom line. Can I get to the bottom line and the price, please? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for you, the same thing. If you're selling a product, you have to own the cost of your products and not be afraid of them. There are times where I'll be like, you know what? I don't actually know the price of that because I sometimes just don't. Like, I don't know the price of that, but let me look that up. I will tell you it's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I just be like straight up. I'm like, it's expensive. It's well worth it. And you have to decide if you want to invest in that or not. All right. And sometimes if you're going to err on the side of pricing, price higher in your mind. So like I have a cream that's like $250. I'm like, oh, I think that cream's like $275. When I get like, oh my God, it's only $250. That's wonderful.
Right.
So,
Yep.
So that's what you're going to do. And yeah, I do sell creams that are $275 and that is 100% true. And I sell them all the freaking time.
They work.
Because they work. But like also I don't have to sell them for $275 creams. I sell them one. And it is the selling point for me. I'm like, oh, I can give you one cream that's $275. You have a cream, you have a cleanser, you have a mask, you have an eye cream. Woo, we're done. And that's the kind of client who sees me. Yeah.
It cleanses too?
I mean, no, you have a cleanser.
Oh, I was like, oh my God, it cleanses and moisturizes. Does it also do my laundry?
You buy a cleanser, you buy a moisturizer, you have an eye cream. But you don't have like 17 serums because quite frankly, if you had 7 serums, they'd probably equal $275.
Yeah. So yeah, it's so funny. I heard from a mutual friend of ours that she's like, I'm actually, it's like the same price because I was spending all that on all these other products too.
But now I just use one and it works and it works better and I like it. And you're like, great.
Yeah.
Right. Excellent. And I don't think about my skin anymore and I don't have to shop for other products. So now I'm happier. Mm-hmm. And it takes away a piece of my brain that used to like think about my skin all the time.
Keep it simple.
That's what I seek. So you have to kind of like just put the price out there, own your price, don't hide the price. If you feel like you have to hide the price, think about like, once again, your own, money stories. We have an episode about that. There's a good book about it. Think about those things. We have a whole therapist who talked about things like that. Mm-hmm. An episode of a therapist, she'll talk to you about it. Mm-hmm. And Alex, are you seeing this therapist?
I am. I'm working with Lindsay. So we did our first session. So stay tuned. Watch me. Here's the plan is next month I'm going to come on and I'm going to be like, you guys, I made $50,000. And it'll be because I cleared up my money bullshit. So stay tuned.
So there you go. See, we take our own advice, everyone. We take
I took your advice.
We take our own advice here on Confessional. So I'm excited to talk about that, about not hiding costs, because I do find that's one of the things that many estheticians are like, well, I didn't want to tell them the price or else see it online, but they'll be like, click here for the price. You're like, what?
I have some things to say about that. I do think there is something to, I don't like always when the price is like social media, for example, like it's not QVC, I've said that before. But if they're landing on your website to see a thing, like, what I really dislike is like, put it in your cart to see the price. I'm like, no, just freaking tell me how much this thing costs, like right here. So on social media and other places like that, like I give you permission to not necessarily put the price out front. But then once you get onto your website, it definitely should be clear. There is this podcast with a business coach that I'm listening to right now. Her program is called 2K for 2K. Literally, the program is $2,000 and she teaches you how to make $2,000. Her price is like front and center.
Break even with my program.
Well, you know what she says? If you don't make $2,000, I'm going to give you your money back. So you like literally have nothing to worry. But I'm just saying, the price is right out there. She says it so many times. There's no drama around it. And I think that's beautiful. Where we really get tripped up is we're like, oh, I mean, you might want this cream, but like, it's like $275. I mean, I don't know. If you want it, it's okay. But if you don't, it's all right. You know, it's like, just sell the damn cream.
If you guys are not watching on YouTube, you're missing out. It's really uncomfortable. And it's so funny. So also one of the reasons you don't put your pricing on social media is because it can change and social media is forever. So people can go back in time and be like, oh, but I thought it was $35. Like, well, pricing went up since 2016, people. Like, like for word, like seriously, COVID happened and like it's completely different now for real.
Let's talk about too, how to determine if they are ready to buy now or later. Because even for me, like, again, this past launch, I'm looking through like, who are these people? Where did they come from? And some of them have been on my list for years. Some of them were ones I tried to sell a $25,000 product to. And, you know, just knowing like, when are they ready? And does that change how I show up?
Mm-hmm. I like to hear this. I would like you to tell me how this is. This is your part. I like, so Alex has a different perspective on this because she's actually done a lot more of these kind of conversations than I do. For me, I'm always like, are they ready to buy? They either are or they're not. For me, I'm just like, okay. So like literally I just had a conversation with a person that I have been dealing with for 2 years as a client who is a client who sees me on the regular. And she's on TV, guys. She's on TV with wretched skin. Okay. She's now, because of COVID, not on TV, sitting around her apartment, just being like, what? Doing yoga. And finally was like, I can't live with my skin anymore. I have to look at it all the time. And I'm finally ready to take, and she even said, I'm finally ready to take care of this. Please help me. And so I told her what we're doing. She was like, yes, yes, yes. I am so sorry that I've ignored you for all these years, and let's do this thing and give me all the product. Right. Whereas before I'd recommend product and she'd just be like, no, I've got this, I just don't think it's that bad. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So interesting too, because this person is coming in to see you, but not taking the next step to really seal the deal. Like in their mind, like that is enough. And online, I'm thinking too of like the people who show up to, who are engaged with the podcast or engaged on social media when I do lives. Like there are people who are like in my DMs and, we have
they're clearly fans, right? They're with you. They're your fans.
Yeah. And like how do you know when they're ready to jump over that first hurdle of making that first purchase? So one thing that I have the opportunity to do is they have to do it for themselves because I'm not talking face to face to them, right? Usually it's me on camera, I'm talking, and there's people in the chat. We don't have one-to-one conversations. And so I use future pacing, which we talked about a little bit, we touched on, to help them see if they can even envision the future that I believe is possible for them. Because if they're not able to see what's possible, I don't think they're actually ready to buy. So for this person that you're talking about too, perhaps for her, like where she's at is okay, right? Clearly it wasn't bad enough. It's not that bad. So investing more to get to that future place, like, well, I'm kind of comfortable here. And I think that happens for a lot of us. We're like totally satisfied with where we're at. And we don't even think about what's possible until somebody else can imagine that future for us. Right?
Well, maybe we're not super comfortable. We're not totally comfortable, but it's comfortable enough based on what it would take to go to the next step.
Right. It's going to work. It's going to be work. Let's just say that.
It's going to be work. And I'm not ready to do that, whether it's financial or it's going to be hard, whatever. I'm just not ready there. This is comfortable enough for where I am.
Yeah. I have to think of because
it's not hard enough yet. Their pain point isn't bad enough.
Enough. I'm trying to think too of the shift again in copy from negative to positive that I made. Because I think before I used to ask, like, do you see or can you imagine a future where like you know exactly what to do and you feel confident to do
Oh,
it?
I
And
helped
like,
you with this text. It was like, are you ready? It was something like, are
oh, no,
you
no, no,
ready?
I think I have it. And if I don't,
Yeah.
this is the one that I should be doing. But it was like kind of nebulous and like, do you believe essentially that life without pain is possible?
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of I mean, it is. It's like this really like, what? I mean, if you are that person and you're like, God, my back hurts every single day, a future without pain, like again, A to Z, that's too far away
Right.
and it's not tangible. And so when I would ask that question again in the chat, it would be like, I'd be like, Bueller, anybody? Anybody?
People are
Like,
like, no, that's crazy talk.
yeah, like I can't, a lot of like they couldn't see it yet. And so I think the shift I made was about being able to do, I think it was something more tangible. I'll have to look
Yeah,
this
it's like,
up.
do you? Well, it was like getting more concrete into the right this second. Like, do you like you find out like once again what their pain point is? Like, do you like when we moved to you to? Can you do one push up? Do you want to be able
Exactly.
to do a push up?
Exactly. And I think
Right.
that's what
If
I
someone's
asked.
like, can you run a marathon? You'd be like, do you think you could like walk down the block? Do you think you
Yeah.
could run? Like, it's these incremental pieces.
And tangible. And I think that is what I asked. Like, can you imagine what it would be like to be reunited with like pain-free push-ups, squats, pull-ups, and not worrying about getting hurt? And that is more possible. And
Right.
so this future pacing, like it's back to, being positive, being tangible, but
Right.
also like what I want for them is for them to experience life without pain. And I know that it's possible, but
Right.
for them, that's too far. That's too far down the road. So
It's also something you could give them right this second.
Yeah.
That they wanted anyways. Like they wanted to be able to do that anyways. So
Yeah.
think about that, guys. That's something that they wanted anyways. So somebody wants to what with you? They want to look good for an event. They want to be able to have nice eyebrows. They want to
Get rid of
Alex
dark
wants to
circles.
not have congestion, right? So, what do they want that you can give them right now? Because you can't be like, you're gonna be clear. Like with acne,
No, what does that
you're not gonna be like be clear. That's not
No.
right away. That's not reality. Not tomorrow.
Tangible things for sure. So in determining are they ready for this or not, if they can't picture that future, if they're not excited about it, then they're not ready, and that's totally fine. Whether they decide to jump aboard and join my crazy train or not, like I'm not offended. I don't take it personally because I know that what I'm doing works. I know that when you are ready and you can show up and do the work, then you're going to kick ass and it's going to be great. And the people who don't have success with me is because like they're not ready and or they don't also have the tools. So I think that we can prompt with our copy on social media or other places and conversations of like painting that picture of what is possible for them so that they can see it. So when you talk about like, gosh, I mean, how would you frame it about like going outside without makeup on and like being fine with that?
So for me, if it was like going outside without makeup, it'd be like, do you see like?
But where would this happen in their time with you?
Oh, so yeah, so that was going to be 6 months. That's going to be at least 6 months. If you have bad acne, it's going to be 6 months to a year.
No. I mean, like this person they come into your salon, the spa.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not starting the conversation this way. Like, where does it come up?
Oh, so that comes up for me. Wow, that doesn't even come up the first conversation with them. That's the second visit. Second to third visit. First visit, you're just sussing them out, right? You're just even finding out like, are they serious? Do they even like you as a person? Are you just you're finding out about them? So they're not even a real client to me to the second visit, right? They're like a person. I've told this before. I don't even know people's names until the third visit.
Don't lie. You don't even know their names at all. Come on.
I almost never know my clients' names. So like the third visit though is when I actually start making an attempt to know their names. So I'm just like, I mean, you're not important to me until you've actually like I've made a connection with you.
Yeah.
Right. But it comes down to that second visit is when you're like, okay, well, I've now had that initial visit with you. You've now made the decision to come back to me and actually come. And now we can actually have a real dialogue because you've clearly, like, you picked up product, you use that product, and you're either seeing changes or you're not. And we're having a conversation. And now we can really get into whether you want, what kind of changes you want to make.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. You've now shown that you're compliant, you're serious. I know you as a client now. Let's get down to it.
Right. So your hurdle of are they ready or not is second or third visit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think, for you guys listening, of just really think about that. Is it really, am I not making as many sales because I'm trying to talk them into marriage on like the first session?
Oh my God, we're gonna live together forever.
Yeah.
Totally true, Alex. That is so true. Yeah, no, it is dating.
Just slow it down. Slow it down. We again suss them out. Like, if they, like, for me too, if they sign up, if they show up, if they are still on the webinar when I am like 80% of the way through my pitch, like, they want to be there. And those are the people that I'm worried, not even worried, but those are the people that I'm thinking about who are probably going to join. Like, those are the people I'm invested in. I'm not worried about the person who never showed up or who left early or who came to one appointment and never came back. Like, you have other things to worry about, and those people aren't invested, so don't worry about them.
Right. And, once again, if they're ready to buy, they're ready to buy. And if they're not, they're not. And that doesn't mean don't try to sell them something. So I know some people are like, I don't even try to sell people on the first visit. I'm like, but you're doing that client a disservice because you're not offering them a solution to their problem, right?
They need a cleanser.
You know the problem. That's your job. Your job is to give them a solution. Yep. So if you're not even offering them a solution, you are a bad esthetician. Like, plain and simple.
Well, just don't play small. Don't play small. Because again, you have the solution. You already know that you have the solution, and keeping it to yourself is a disservice to them. It's a disservice to all of your clients. Just be brave. But the way to get there is by doing it incrementally, right? Is selling the cleanser on the first session because it's something that's inexpensive and they're going to have a new experience with, is knowing what type of cleanser. I think too, Cybil, you had the gel cleanser and the oil cleanser. You didn't start me out on an oil cleanser because I would have been like, but I have acne. I never.
No, but I wanted to, but that's not the one I ever start people on because, like, it's scary.
Oh my God, I love it now though. I'm just like,
But then once again, I want almost every one of my clients to be on an oil cleanser, but I don't start people on oil cleansers, almost no one, because it's too scary. It's also harder to use. So, like, what I want is not what they want, right? So you have to find that in-between ground. Though I now have a new powder cleanser, which I'm super in love with. So that's going to be, I know, we'll talk about that another time. I'm trying out this new powder cleanser and it's like crack. I love it so much. It's so good. It's so good. It's from Korea and it's amazing.
I just had this vision too, not of that, but I'm thinking of, our clients are starting at A. Yeah. We're already at Z, right? All the things, you have the expertise, what's going to help them, but you can't be like, okay, here's what you need to do. You got to meet them halfway or even meet them at the start and just hold their hand like, hey, here's the next step. Why don't you try this? And let's see how that goes. How does that sound? And then let them be, let it breathe, give them some space. Like, if you're like up in their grill, like, okay, I want you to do this, and I want you to do that, and I want you to do this, and then I need you to do this. Like, you're not going to be listening. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So
and I've known it. Go ahead.
And
I'm known as a pretty mean esthetician. Like, anyone knows that I'm a pretty mean esthetician. Like, I'm just like, what do you mean you didn't do what I told you to do? Right? I'm a pretty mean esthetician, but I still will like hold your hand and I'll just be like, hey, I know this is hard. If you have a problem, you let me know. It can be 3:00 in the morning. If I'm up, I'll answer your questions and I'm probably up. So feel free to ask. But you have to, there's a little bit of hand holding and some help that's sometimes needed. Yeah.
So I think at this point, I mean, of course we could go on and on and on and on and on.
That's true.
But I think you have a lot to kind of think through to start with. And I challenge you to sell something on the first visit, something inexpensive.
I'm going to do a bigger challenge.
Oh, shoot.
I'm going to challenge you to try to sell to every single person who comes through your door.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that the only way to really get better at selling and to no pressure sale is to try to sell to every single person. I don't care if it's uncomfortable. I don't care if it's a chapstick. I don't care what you're selling. Find one thing, be like, this is the thing I'm selling. I'm going to try to work on selling this.
Yeah.
Right? You can even try to sell a service. I don't care what you're selling, but work on selling one thing.
Because guess what?
Every single person.
You get better by doing it more.
Right. And that's how anybody gets better at selling something, you know? And I tell the story all the time about how I worked at a spa and I did not like any of the stuff I was selling there. And yet I still found things to sell because I found like the two things I like to sell and I sold those items. So there's always something. And if you own your own business, hopefully if you're listening to me and Alex, we're sole proprietors. And hey, if you're one of those people who is out there and you're like, I'm not even a salon owner. I'm just a person who, does therapy or something. Cause I know they're out there. Hey, you should think about selling things or selling packages or upselling something. Cause that's how you make money. Alex, tell us a story about selling goods now.
Oh, let me tell you the story. So the product that you need to be most successful at the type of work I do is a package of therapy balls. And for the longest time, truly until about a month ago, I was convinced that I had to give that away so that people would get success right away, that was the key. If they had the tools, they would be successful. And truthfully, that's not the truth because then they would quit early and then I'd be like, shoot, I'm out money. I even had this one person in Canada and I messed up the address. And so I had to ship a package twice to Canada for $30 each time, both ways. She didn't pay a dime. It was free. So this time, based on Cybil's advice, just do what she says, you guys. I added the products as an optional add-on as you are checking out. So if you wanted to get the tools, here they were at an awesome price. This is, great price you're not going to find anywhere else. If you want them, here you go. And something like over 30% of people decided to get that, which added an extra $452 onto my launch of I didn't have to do anything for that. And then also they get the balls. I'm making money on this deal. I'm not losing money. And if they decide to quit in a month, okay, I made my money. I'm not worried about the sale. I'm not worried about them quitting because, again, how you show up and that energy is so super important and people can sense that.
Wonderful. And something to sell. So I know as somebody who has inventory and stuff, I know, but you all out there already have inventory. You got to sell it anyways. But if you don't have inventory and you're listening to here and you're like, listen, I don't sell anything. Think about selling something. I don't know what you might sell. Boutique items, you're like, so generally something you love. Because the other thing about selling something is literally I sell things that I'm like, I love that tea. I'm going to bring that in as a wholesaler because you know what that does for me? It allows me to have it at 50% off.
Yeah.
And then I can share this with everyone else because I love it. So I talk it up. I'm talking it up anyways. Now I can have it at a discount and I can sell it to people. Woo, that's a bonus. So find the things that you like. Just reach out to that company and be like, hi, I'd like to sell this. And it's so easy to get a resale license in almost every city and state. They're like, you want to sell and we'll get money from you? That's amazing.
Collect tax. Yeah.
That's amazing. We're very excited. Just make sure you do pay your sales tax because that's important.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I recommend. That's my final recommendation from today's show.
Come back and tell us how your sales are going.
Oh my God, tell us how all your sales are going. Also, thank you everyone who really liked our podcast on whether you can actually have sales for Christmas or the holiday season, because we did get actually a lot of conversation going about that. So I appreciate all of you who dropped me DMs.
I need a spooky scape back here.
Yeah, you do. You just need your cat, Spooky.
He's sleeping. He can't be bothered.
Yeah, not so spooky. Thank you, everybody who gave us all the comments about that. I'm glad that it spawned you to actually think about doing some sales and promotions for the holiday season and that it was inspiring. So thank you all very much. Nobody called in, so I'm sad about that nobody used the Skinfessional line. You're all apparently very afraid of our Skinfessional box.
Keep coming and finding us on social media. The show is at Skinfessional on all the places. Cybil is at Your Skin Fitness Expert. I am at Hala for Mala. Good luck spelling that. Or you can leave a message in the box, on the box, near the box.
In the box. Go to the box, guys. I would love to do the box. I would actually do I would love to do like a live question show at some point. I think that they're going to come back into fashion. I'm saying it right now. They're going to come back into fashion. I don't know if anybody's doing them right now, but I think they're coming back into fashion.
So leave us a message so that we can play it and then answer your question.
And the number for that is 818-473-5277.
Mm-hmm.
So until next week,
keep your secrets to yourself.
unless you're telling us.
Okay, bye.
Bye.